Hello and welcome to the Carbitrage Podcast, episode 208. I'm Eric Berger, joined as always by my co-host Ryan Sinitsky. Hello, sir.
Hi there.
And then we are also joined by Jana, and Scott is back.
This time without Stella.
Yeah, well, we actually briefly did 208.
I can't hear Jana because Jana's on mute. Probably the cat in her lap.
No worries, that's a worthy sacrifice.
Oh, there.
But no, we briefly tried. I am remote down in Florida, and everyone else is back home in Minnesota. But we had some internet connection issues on my end that weren't able to sustain video. So trying again with just the audio version, and hopefully that powers through. How are you guys doing?
Good. I just found out I've got $11.67 in my Steam wallet from stuff I've sold on Counter-Strike, so that's good.
I'm terrified to know that there is something called a Steam wallet.
Yeah, it's how you buy games in Steam.
I just use a credit card.
Yeah. So, but with games like Counter-Strike and stuff, they have those little loot boxes, and I've actually made decent money from opening those and selling stuff on them. I sold a knife for $300 last spring, and that paid for all my video games when I was unemployed during COVID. It was pretty great.
All right, well that's a new development for me.
I wish I could put that in my actual bank account, but hey,
that's probably
free video games, why not?
Anyway,
I'm just out on the porch with the cat because he insists on being out here.
Good, Lucifer.
Yeah.
Yes.
He loves it. He doesn't like my swing though. He'll come sit up with me for 2 minutes and then be like, "Why is this moving?" And then he leaves me. But...
You're never going to be interesting forever to a cat, unfortunately. So, anyway, before we start digging into some normal topics, I briefly want to cover our Patreon page, patreon.com/Carbitrage. You definitely know how to spell it because you found us here. Head on over to patreon.com/Carbitrage. On there, you'll find 2 open-ended levels of support for content consumers like you to support content producers like us. They come with some neato small swag items, and like I said, they're open-ended, so you can pick as little as buying us a beer a month or as much as you please. Patreon.com/Carbitrage. Man, I got almost all the way through that read. Then I fumbled. Next up, beer.
We're not doing another take. So.
No.
Yeah.
Amateurs do 2 takes. I do 1 take.
This is take 3, though.
Whatever. I'm drinking a Yingling. What are you guys drinking?
Youngling. I'm drinking a Castle Danger Green Ale.
That sounds excellent. It's a good beer.
And I've got a Lake Monster Como Claw Pilsner, which is delicious.
Still.
Yeah.
Perfect. That sounds good.
I
kind of figured you weren't drinking a beer, Jana, so I just picture you with a coffee in your hand. Anyway, all right, so this episode, as I've already kind of alluded to, is called the Niro Saga Part 2. If you haven't watched or listened to Part 1, I highly suggest scrubbing back to October of 2020 and digging up episode 188. On that episode, we cover the beginning of it's a saga of Scott shopping for, purchasing, and starting to get warranty issues on his brand new Kia Niro EV. He started searching out this car because it fit all of his needs with long range, relatively inexpensive purchase price, a heat pump, which is a big thing, and also just kind of general practicality with 4 actual doors and a hatch. But after getting the vehicle, starting to notice that there was some mechanical clicking during regen, finding out that it's actually the motor where it interfaces to the gear case and that there was already a superseded part number. And once he found that out, sort of engaging the local dealer, Kia North America, and then the painstaking process of getting the car shipped on the manufacturer's dime while using rental cars on his own dime to get that issue fixed. So we left off on the story. He had the car back with a replacement motor from the local dealer, from a Chicago dealer, with some newly added dents in the roof. We had correspondence open with a potential buyback or some hush money with Kia NA, and we don't know the last name of that rep. But we have a lot more information now, so let's start off Chapter 2.
Yeah, exactly. And at the time that we recorded and going back, pretty solid episode, I thought. But so it felt like it was kind of the conclusion. At the very end,
right.
I think Ryan asked, after going through all this, would you recommend this car? I think something like that. And I think
Jana's mom is what it was, and you said no.
I think I was kind of hemming and hawing, and I think ultimately I said no. and it's hard to say that that's moved the needle in the yes direction at all since then.
It's still there. Well, what led you to still be in the no camp?
Well, I think the critical thing was that the first purchase buyback offer was issued in September, so 2 months after the car had been picked up for repair, but before it had been returned and fixed. And so I had an offer letter with $7,500 plus you can keep the car. Please go away. And I was tempted to take that offer, to be honest, but I wanted to make sure that the car was fixed before I decided to keep it, because I didn't really want to send it back and go shopping for another car, because I had already done that research and this was already the one that I had landed on. And
Yeah,
so it didn't make a whole lot of sense to just reset it. And then more things followed.
So when you left off with us in late October, after getting the Niro back and doing a sweet smoky burnout out of the dealer, did you actually have was it an offer letter in hand that officially stated $7,500, or was that like an email saying, well, what if we offered you $7,500 to just shut your mouth and keep the car?
No, so what I later learned was that the offer letter, the buyback letter, was really a precursor to a here's your money and shut up with confidentiality.
Oh,
now,
okay.
I've since been told that anytime you settle a lemon case without going to arbitration or courts, it almost certainly would have such a confidentiality clause, especially with respect to the terms.
Okay.
Because they don't want you to go around on the forums and Facebook and Twitter and all the places I've been very vocal, Reddit, and they don't want you to tell them I got $7,500 plus I keep the car. Just write them a letter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't know that at the time. And so I was thinking they would just give me the money and just take the money and, keep your car and just, you won't sue us for whatever. It turns out that's not the case. But so anyway, their first offer, was issued while the car, I think, was in Chicago. I can't remember exactly where it was yet. But
You definitely didn't have it in your possession.
Right. But again, I was tempted to take their offer to keep the car and some extra money, which frankly makes it a pretty good value of a car. But I also wanted to make sure that the motor wasn't clicking and was at least nominally fixed before accepting that offer.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to have to deal with that 10-year powertrain warranty. And if you had a brand new vehicle, that should have been free from defect in the beginning, whereas the confidence that the superseded motor will be free from that same defect.
Right. Yeah, it's worth
literally not there.
Yeah, and that motor had been superseded. Just to recap a little bit, the 710 motor was what shipped with most 2019, I think all 2020 models as well, from the factory, and that's the model number, I guess, on the part. And when I got the car back, you can visibly see the part number sticker from the front right wheel well, and it indeed was the 711 motor, which was the first revision of the original motor, which was only used as replacement when people complained.
And worth mentioning in that other episode too, we were aware from Kia themselves telling us that the new superseded 711 motor was in stock in mass in New Jersey in the United States, even though it was made in Korea. So that kind of leads us to believe that may be something that they're aware is a systemic issue.
Yeah, and the Chicago dealership in Schaumburg said that I think they said it was an $8,000 part, maybe $10,000 or more overall if I had to pay out of pocket. So it's not a small deal, and I'm guessing cost, even cost to manufacture on a part like that is not cheap. But
no, it's a lot of machining, a lot of precious metals. It's
proper.
There's nothing cheap about that, but I mean, also, if it was manufactured correctly in the first place, they wouldn't have had to have done that.
So supposedly, with the first revision, the 711 motor was supposed to have a strengthened flange. If you watch teardown videos on electric motors and gear cases, there's typically sort of a ring of I think they're hex bolts. I'm not sure if that's the right term.
Probably Torx.
But, yeah, if you look at like a Tesla performance motor, it has like 9 or 12 or some huge number, but like a Leaf motor has like 6. And
Yeah.
so I haven't seen a particular breakdown. It'd be very interesting to look at all these motors, but my guess is that they added additional bolts or extra flange strengthening to prevent the misalignment that apparently led to grinding and eventual, catastrophic failure.
I would imagine that they eventually, if they haven't yet, would have to add little hollow dowels around the actual bolt hole and then mill the actual gear case as well to accept those dowels to keep those motors centered. Because typically in gasoline and electric motor engine applications, when they connect to a transmission, there are centering dowels, at least on opposing sides, and at least two of them. So if this was really manufactured and shipped without those dowels, I could see this absolutely being a problem.
And so I have not been able to substantiate this claim, but someone, I think on one of the forums, stated that the Kia Hyundai motor, BEV motor setup is actually just the hybrid, the conventional hybrid motor, but without the additional, I guess, the planetary gear and all that. They were saying that it's literally the same motor. I don't think that's true, because I think the power output is too high.
Yeah,
But they were saying that they just adapted the standard hybrid motor and the gear set from that. And so, one speculation I've had is that hooning on this, almost 300 pound-feet torque motor, as I think you have a right to do as an owner of a car. I think you can drive it to its limit, and I'm a person who likes to hoon. And so it's possible that the extra stress was not within the testing regimen that Hyundai Kia did on this sort of a half-hearted attempt at a full electric car.
That would make sense, yeah, if it was underspecified for that amount of torque.
I think so.
Especially because we were commenting, the 711 felt like it was an even stronger motor than the 710.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just forgetfulness, but other people on the forums have stated the same thing.
I imagine having it maintain its actually integrity and not grinding against itself, that probably would add some stress, or not stress, but that actually adds some parasitic loss to the output of the engine. And what you're probably feeling is not that. It is just an engine that doesn't have that loss of being misaligned, to be honest.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, the car doesn't really lack for power, so it wasn't really an issue anyway. But so anyway, they Kia ended up following up with another offer letter after we recorded November, and they increased their second offer to $10,000. And so this is essentially a carbon copy of the previous offer, except they increased it from $7,500 to $10,000. And once again, they gave a period for reply. I think they typically were giving 45 days, if I remember correctly. And shortly, 4 days after that second offer letter came, again, I went out to my car to start it, which it had a full charge the night before. It was a little cold, maybe 20 degrees, and the car completely would not start, would not unlock, would not do anything. And I took a pretty funny picture where I actually jumped it from the 535. I jumped the electric car from the gas car, which I posted it to one of the Kia Niro Facebook groups, and they deleted it.
I remember that.
Which I find very funny. A little uptight, but okay. So it ended up replacing the battery. I called the dealership, I called manufacturer. None of them would even respond to me, so I just went to Walmart and bought my own battery and swapped that out, and it's actually been just fine ever since. But our speculation was that maybe during the full motor replacement that they maybe let that 12-volt battery get too low and probably did some damage to it. But
well, you said that there was a 12-volt battery on the warranty invoice from when the car was in Chicago.
Correct.
So they replaced it, but then maybe it happened again from sitting, because it did. I mean, it sat at Chicago for a while after it was even done being repaired, waiting for a shipment.
Yes, but I was monitoring the high voltage battery, and that was typically plenty full, because with the app you can kind of check on it.
Well, maybe the app runs on the low voltage battery. Maybe you killed it.
That's funny. But anyway, the DC-DC converter from the high voltage to the 12-volt battery really should have been keeping that up no matter what it was doing.
Sounds like that needs a firmware update.
It definitely does. In fact, it's a widespread issue even without all these motor issues. So that's something that they do need to address, and it's just kind of ridiculous that can happen. So I ended up filing a week later the lemon law request with the Washington Attorney General, which is where I bought the car. if you buy a car out of state, generally speaking, you have to pursue the legal procedures in that state that you bought the car. I think if I had filed a lawsuit, I maybe could have done so in Minnesota, just because that's where I live and that's where I signed the actual paperwork. But I ended up filing a complaint with the Attorney General, and that was after I had written them a letter. I think I wrote the letter to them. I sent a letter to them back in August, actually.
Oh,
and you had
jeez.
to give 40 days. Yeah, I forgot about
More than
that. So that was before our last recording. So I had sent them a letter saying I want buyback, because you have to do this procedurally in order to request lemon law buyback and all that. So I had done that procedurally, and you had to wait 40 days, and then after 40 days, which I guess is roughly here, I then filed the request with the Washington Attorney General. This was in hopes of getting more leverage and having, a backup plan in case for some reason their offer was unsatisfactory. Just a few weeks later, Kia did offer. They actually reissued a $10,000 offer in December, and so there's so many things concurrently. I already made a timeline for the arbitration that we'll get to in a minute here, and so the manufacturer has an opportunity once you file a complaint, and this is depending on each state, but in Washington, which is fairly conventional from what I can see, the manufacturer has 10 days after I file my official complaint with the Attorney General to basically offer their defenses. Like, the car wasn't broken, he's being unreasonable, or, the car wasn't actually at the dealer for more than 30 days, it was blank. But they didn't have any defense, because they didn't even file any response with any defenses. And so
Good old Shelby.
yeah, Shelby Jocelyn, that's her last name.
Damn.
We finally got her. She slipped up.
Yeah. And once the Attorney General spilled the beans on her full name, I just called her Miss Jocelyn in all communications after that, because I knew that she didn't like that.
Awesome.
I love that.
And so another week after they did not hit the deadline to present defenses, Kia offered a fourth offer letter now. This one was increased to $12,500. It's essentially a carbon copy of the previous ones, but they just keep ticking up the dollar amount. I forget which offer, if it was fourth or fifth, but they eventually did explicitly say we're going to pay for your rental cars as well, because I had 3 separate bills. They paid for 2 of them, but there's outstanding. It's hundreds of dollars, less than 1,000, but more than 500. And was not going to let that go either.
I was going to say, that's
Not a lot
felony
interesting
level if
happened
it's
here.
stolen from you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is where the process got kind of really slow and boring. I think really the more interesting stuff was earlier on, because the car was being fixed and this and that and this and that. At this point, it's just kind of a war of attrition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
corporate,
this-
but now I've got the wheels turning on the lemon buyback, which, it's as a consumer, it's just, you got to do that just to have your options open. And I believe I rejected their offer continually, because I was doing the math on this, and with a new battery electric car with the full tax credit, you're looking at $7,500. Even, say you buy the car back, or they buy it back, and you just buy the same car again, it's immediately a delta of $7,500. So
Yeah.
they need to do not just better than that, but a lot better than that, because you're also looking at getting a fresh new car with potentially a newer model year
And more equipment.
and more equipment. And if you bought the same car used, for instance, or even new, if they still had one on the lot, it's going to be a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So there's depreciation, and then the weird X factor, of course, here is the tax credit, which you can get every year, provided you're buying an eligible car. And there's some fine print basically in the tax credit saying you can't buy the car to get the tax credit and then immediately,
Sell it.
give it away or sell it. Yeah, you're supposed to
You have to-
have
you have
the
to keep it for-
intent. Yeah, the intent has to be to keep it. And whether the IRS actually pursues that or not, I don't know. You don't really want to mess with the IRS. So I did not have the intent to not keep the car, and so that was fully in good faith. And so I was free and clear. I could ditch the car, the next day and get the full credit again, buying the same car. And so I kept saying, like, please call me, Kia. I'll walk you through why my offer. And I had been asking for 15,000
I was
for
gonna
quite a
say,
while.
when between which two offers did you respond back and say no? I want 15 grand, and I'll keep the car.
I think that was roughly in early 2021.
Okay.
I think this was probably just before or after they failed to meet the deadline on the defenses.
Okay.
Because then I really knew that they didn't have a case at all, and so if they want to settle this out, they know that I have the leverage now.
Look
and
at
again,
me.
doing the
I
math-
have the leverage now.
I'm the captain. So I mean, I didn't want to come out worse for it, So if I have two options, and I legitimately am willing to go down the repurchase, which is, more hassle, of course, than just waiting for a check to show up. But what I ended up doing some research, and it's like, well, what if I buy another new one now? It's 2021. So that was one critical thing. Is in 2020, if I had gone and bought another car, it would have been in the same calendar year, and then I wouldn't have been able to get the credit. So one of the wasn't really a bad faith action on my part, but I knew that if this process dragged out a little bit more, if I got to January 1st, then I could go and buy the replacement car. Before January 1st, then I would have to basically find another car to use for a while. And so once the calendar turned, I think that might have been the point actually that I started asking for 15,000. And I did not think I was going to make it to 2021. I mean, I can't believe it did, because that is many, many months.
I remember having
first
the
offer was in
conversation with you
September.
in late 2020. I'm like, well, I mean,
Right.
technically, if it made it this far, we're like, no way.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. And so they ended up increasing their offer. Their final increase was 9 days before the scheduled hearing. So it was on 2/10, and the hearing was on 2/19. And they didn't even send the letter like they had before. They sent a legal settlement document that said $15,000, and we were demanding full confidentiality, including, and here's what I didn't like, strictly confidential, including but not limited to a mutual agreement to not make or post disparaging statements about each other or the products involved in print, electronic, social media, or internet media. So,
So it's like basically not a gag order, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, right,
It's
and
basically that. Yeah.
and that's again, I haven't seen this before, but just saying, don't tell them you got 15 grand. I would
Right.
have been probably fine with that. But then I saw the social media stuff, and I've been in communication with Gustavo Rufo at the Inside EVs, and he's already written an article, and he said he's going to follow up. I need to send him some more documents, actually.
I do have the Inside EVs thing open too, and I've been scrolling through some photos of the motors and stuff. I know you guys can't see it, but I do have
Yeah,
the
if you
article up.
Yeah, if you just Google Inside EVs owner say Hyundai, that'd probably bring it up. But
All you have to do
um,
is Google Kia 710 motor, and it takes you right to all of your posts.
yeah, I'm sure that might come up quite a few times. So the actual hearing, and I don't know if people are interested in this or not, but Lemon Law has.
Oh, it does. Huh? Look at that.
Lemon. You could do a whole episode on Lemon Law, and I really honed in on certain provisions of it. I think my case is a really simple one, because under Washington law, there's 4 categories under which your car can be considered a lemon, and you can have the right to demand buyback. One is like there's a serious safety defect. One is it's been in for repair like 4 times. One is there's something else, and then the fourth one is that the car's been out of your possession for more than 30 days.
Wow, that's not much.
It's a really open and shut provision. There's no exceptions. Now, some states I've heard have extended this to 60 during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Washington, as far as I could tell, never did that. But even if they did, it wouldn't have mattered. My car, according to the arbitrator, was out for 95 days. And I thought it was 92, but apparently it's 95. So the actual hearing, I actually sent a request for a copy of the hearing. It's not that interesting, but if I get it, I'll share it. So I did the actual hearing, which took over an hour. I mean, it was very slow, boring, procedural. And Shelby showed up.
Miss Jocelyn.
Also, this is a lawyer saying that something was slow, procedural,
Yeah.
boring.
Years ago I took Fiat Chrysler to a small claims court, and I was surprised how intense it was, and frankly how formal it was. This was pretty similar. I couldn't decide what to wear. I ended up wearing a suit and tie, but I was actually dressed up more than the arbitrator, which was kind of... Oops. You don't want to be underdressed.
Were you using a cat filter?
I am not a cat. I am not a cat, sir.
I'm ready to proceed.
So the hearing is, I don't know, it's not that interesting. He just went through all of the legal provisions of the Washington statute. What did you pay for the car? When did you drop the car off? When did you pick it up? What was the nature of the issues? And this was all presented in print. There was really no reason to run through all of this again.
Mm-hmm.
And then they basically said, Fiat, do you dispute, or not Fiat, Kia, do you dispute any of these dates? And she did not dispute them. So she said almost nothing the whole time. And at first she had her screen turned off, her camera turned off. And then the arbitrator had to ask her to turn on her camera, which is kind of funny.
I just want to see a copy of it to see this person's face.
Yeah, she has a bit of a Karen look to her, but...
oh, no.
So then the ruling, the arbitrator made the ruling that same day, but I did not get the ruling until March 3rd. And the ruling wasn't, I didn't get everything I asked for. For instance, I was asking for the shipping cost, $1,100 for that. I asked for, that was the main one that I asked for that I didn't get. But they did cover things like the insurance, the title registration, the rental car difference, and then the full purchase price of the car. And so the buyback was $4,000 more than the actual price of the car. So it's $42,000 and change. And after I'd gotten that ruling, I'm like, all right, I'm holding all the cards now. So I send one final email to Kia saying, look, I'm not going to sign it with the full confidentiality, but do you want to discuss? Please give me a call. They did not give me a call. They simply said, we will still offer the $15,000, with full confidentiality. And as one last ditch effort, I said, look, here's three options. One, I'm going to go through with buyback. Two, you can up your offer to $17,000 with all your crap, and I'll sign it. And then the third option was I'll do $15,000, but I only will give limited confidentiality to the terms of the agreement.
And you actually struck the text you didn't like in the message.
Correct. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I think they're just looking to move on. I think they're just done. So, that's kind of where we are now. In terms of the procedure.
So have they gotten back to you on those three things, or they just didn't say anything?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah. They said, we'll just do buyback.
Oh, okay.
And then she clumsily asked for, the terms of She clumsily sent out an email too soon asking for the financing and all that documentation. In fact, I have 60 days from March 3rd to basically say I accept the buyback, or I can actually appeal to the district court. And frankly, after reading the statute, I do think I could probably recoup additional costs if I did so. But at this time, I'm not really thinking of pursuing that, but I have the option to think about it for 2 months. And the buyback is not keyed to the current vehicle's mileage. So there's a provision that they basically subtract a little bit from the buyback based on the number of miles you drove, but it's at the time of the incident.
Oh.
And so it had 825 miles on it or something at the time.
Yeah, I remember you had 1,100 when we talked about it right after you got it back, and you had been driving it. It was eight something.
So it subtracted $200, nominal. So now, in theory, I've got 2 full months to just drive the heck out of the car, and it wouldn't affect the buyback whatsoever. So I could go cross country or whatever.
On your Nokia and Hacapolitas.
And so there's really no reason for me to rush. And so I have this 2-month period, month and a half roughly left, to think about what I want to do. And basically just the real question is, what am I going to replace the Niro with?
Well, what were you thinking about replacing it with?
So 2020, so my Niro is a 2019. If you look into the options and the standard features, there's a few changes, and frankly, some pretty major ones, at least in terms of cold climates. My car had no heated seats and no heated steering wheel, despite having the cold weather package, which is just absurd. But for 2020, heated seats became standard on all models, and the cold weather package with the heat pump added the heated steering wheel. And so, basically, for the same MSRP, I could get a 2020 Niro that would have both heated seats, heated steering wheel, an inch bigger infotainment, and basically everything else is the same. But you're getting a fresh warranty, a newer model year for better resale, and frankly, some features I really would like a heated seat and heated steering wheel. And on top of that, I looked at prices on 2020s, which there's no 2021 yet, even though we're in 2021, and they're $3-4 grand less than I paid for my 2019 in mid 2020.
Oh,
So that would more than offset the shipping cost, plus you would get seats and a steering wheel.
Correct. And so you get a fresh warranty, a newer model year, heated steering wheel, and heated seats, and you don't have to pay shipping because I would just drive it back next time. So
there's
a few ways.
an added benefit here that you haven't mentioned, that you will continue to be a thorn in the side of Kia.
Well, and that's what I was just going to get at, too. I'm like, if you bought a 2020,
out of the parking lot.
you would potentially have a car. I mean, I assured it would be an E710 motor, and it's probably going to start clicking again. So what I would ask you is, if you go through and do this, you buy a new Niro ahead of time, you bring it back, you swap your winter tires over, whatever, we put the hitch on it, would you... What happens in your brain or legally when that new Niro starts clicking? That's what I want to know.
Yes.
Well, so there's a couple things here. One, the dealership in Bloomington, Luther, which again they didn't do anything wrong. They were good to work with. They speculated that they would be, at least someone in Minnesota would be certified to work on these electrics this year, 2021.
Okay.
I haven't seen any evidence of that, but the new eGMP Kia and Hyundais are coming out either this year or early next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is probable. So that's one thing. In fact, that's the biggest thing. So this motor swap is a big job. It's probably like one full day for one technician. And
That sounds about right. Yep.
yeah, and so if it was local, of course I would demand a loaner if it happened again. But if it was local and they didn't have to sit on it, for a month before they shipped it out, and then the Chicago dealer sat on it for 2-3 weeks, a lot of the delays were completely avoidable. And if it had just been, here's the repair we need, we're going to order the part when it comes in, we'll take your car, we'll give you a loaner, we'll have it done in a couple days. Honestly, if that was the process, I never would have been unhappy in the first place.
Right.
Hey, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But as
now,
it stands...
I would like to have confidence. I would like to have confidence that they've actually fixed the problem. Now, this was never going to be a long-term hold. This car was just to get to the ID Buzz van, and
Which
that's
coming out the 10th of never.
yeah. I mean, I'm more and more concerned about the timeline on that. There's actually some news on that vehicle. They're going to be two wheelbases. Sounds like the early models would be rear drive only.
Oh, yeah.
And short wheelbase only. And so the delay for the US is partly because we're only getting the long wheelbase version of the Buzz. Whatever. I probably would have gotten the short one, but so be it. But anyway, so if the issue happened again and there was a certified dealer, it'd be kind of okay. But so I didn't end up taking the $15,000 confidentiality because frankly they burned me and they deserve to be skewered publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And
overpay for your car, frankly.
Right. And but what I kept thinking, I don't know if I ever said this, but it's like if they just given this offer right away, I mean, when the issues started happening at first, if I'd seen $15,000, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take that.
Sure.
I'm not angry yet, and that's a huge dollar amount.
Well, I mean, you look at the time that's elapsed. You bought the car in June of 2020, and it is now March of 2021, and you still have it. Right. And we're still talking about it.
And I've only put 4,000 some miles on it, so I haven't put huge amount of miles on it because it's been out of service so much. So.
And typically you do. Your commute's long.
Yeah, it's pretty long. 50 miles round trip, so I imagine that's above average.
I mean, I guess you have put several miles on it for the fact that you've owned it for like a month now.
Yeah, I had it for less than a month after it got delivered. I had it for like 2 weeks roughly until I dropped it off. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, you've had it.
2
You've had it
weeks.
for like a month. Like
Yeah,
you managed to put
incredible.
on like.
And how many car
several
payments have you
miles.
made?
How many what?
How many car payments have you now made?
Oh, that's a good
Eric.
question.
We don't need Scott to develop an alcoholism problem about that.
So anyway, so would I buy the car again, knowing that it might have that same problem again? Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think I would, because frankly, it's a warranty, and if there's really a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of being able to service it locally, and if I'd known everything that I know now, I could have driven it to Chicago, had it fixed, and driven it home. Why would that be incumbent on me to do that though? And if somebody moved from Seattle or from Chicago or from somewhere to Minneapolis and brought their car with them, it could still break down. It's not like there's a law against or a law saying that you can't bring your car with you when you move. So I think it's completely a joke that Kia has been so slow to roll out EV certified technicians, or to at least fly them out in a case that they're needed.
Well, look at when I bought my first Fiat 500e up here, and I had that regen problem like 6 months into it, which turned out to be nothing of the car's fault. I dropped it off at a Fiat dealership in the middle of Minnesota, which is a brand that's really not known for being a highline dealer. It's really not known for anything, but they gave me a loaner, no questions asked. They flew people out. Yeah, like Scott was saying, that were certified to work on the car, and they fixed it. They put many thousands of dollars worth of parts into it before they realized that the thing I had plugged into the OBD2 port was causing CAN failure. And then I got the car back. Like, I would have been probably livid had I had to ship the car to a different state to get it fixed, but that just wasn't on the table. And grant, this wasn't in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, which is constantly what Kia was plotting at with Scott's car.
Yeah.
So, all right, so I think this is the difference between Kia and Fiat in the situation is Kia went into this having a bunch of goodwill and thinking that, and they're like, yeah, we can work around it. Like, we'll be fine. We have goodwill with our customer base. We'll be fine. People that buy Kia love Kia. Fiat, on the other hand, they went into it knowing if there's anything that goes wrong with this freaking car, it's going to blow up in our face so hard we're going to be kicked out of the market immediately. And that's why Fiat actually goes out of their way to actually try to help you, whereas Kia doesn't.
Well, yeah,
it's
Fiat at the
confusing.
time was pretty new in the country, so yeah, they were still trying to make inroads and build that goodwill. So I mean, they used to offer loaners, so yeah.
I think even to date, Fiat, I still think that they're still being supportive, like, with their older cars, because they know that every single boomer in the world hates them forever, and that no matter what Fiat Alpha does, they're still gonna have every boomer in the world screaming about their unreliability, even though they're perfectly reliable.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the next generation for sure.
Yeah, but anyway, so
the next question then, I mean, that kind of wraps it up, frankly. I mean, I'm doing buyback. They're buying the car back.
yeah,
And that's
you'll be
it.
getting another EV,
So-
another one, and then probably
well-
playing this game again in another 10 months.
I mean, how much time do we have, Eric?
We're only 38 minutes in, so we've got a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, there's more that could be harped on, but I think that summarizes what's happened, and it stunk. And I think we all thought it was done at the end of the last episode, but it wasn't. And obviously, that wasn't the most desirable outcome to ultimately give the car back. But on the other hand, having it buyback and just undoing the deal after kind of having transportation for almost a year, I guess that's kind of a good deal for me. Now, the other thing is, if I buy another one, I get the tax credit again, which I've already talked about. But that really complicates everything because, and there's a few new entrants as well. I mean, you got the Mach-E, you got the ID4, you got the.
I would get the Mach-E. No,
it's rear-wheel drive, which would be nice.
That's true.
Yeah, but that's also a Mustang.
Actually,
they call it they're playing that down, but on the front of it, there's a Mustang logo.
Well, first thing I would do is put a
tried-
blue oval on there. I'm sure Tim Rose
Yeah,
could
but
help
that's
that.
the thing
Oh,
is,
yeah.
at that point, you're then supporting them trying to make the Mustang into an SUV, and I just think for me, like that on like
It's a wagon, though.
principle.
Honestly, I saw
Yeah,
this
but-
next to an A6 Allroad, and it is the same size. It's just
But the issue
it's
is
a wagon.
they marketed it as a crossover. It's entirely my issue with the Mach-E is on principle based on their marketing. Is the fact that they tried to say it's a Mustang and it's an SUV, and everybody screamed and they're like, "Oh shit, we've already designed the entire car to make it look like a Mustang." you got to drop the Mustang name from all of the advertising, but you still have a Mustang logo on the front, and now it's called a Mach-E. Like, that's the thing. That's my issue with that. That's why I would never ever buy one of those based off that principle alone.
Well, you know, it was originally going to be a Focus.
That would have been fine. I would have been thrilled. I would have loved that as a Focus. That'd been the best Focus ever.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
instead of being the best Focus, it's the worst Mustang.
I forget where I heard that, but it was a pivot for marketing reasons, and you know, it's made splashes as a result. So the Mach-E lacks a heat pump on any trim in the U.S. Same with the ID4. Can't believe that.
That's ridiculous.
Actually, the ID4 might have been the play because they're comparable in price to the Niro, and it's a brand new platform.
And you get a loyalty bonus when you trade it in on your Buzz.
Right. Yeah, I get $500 if I buy another Niro, which is hilarious. And then you've also got the XC40, a little too expensive, but I think they're pretty cool. Then
Nice
you got the
interior.
Ioniq 5. Ioniq 5's coming out, which I think is an awesome car, but I think it's next year. That's too far off. But this starts raising the question of, might I go back to a gas car? Should I just undo this whole thing, take the credit, walk away, and buy a cheap car? So I'm really considering buying another internal combustion car now to replace it.
Well, I think it sucks they have to come to that conclusion where you're like, I might have to do this. Like, that totally blows.
Well, I see posts like that all the time in electric vehicle groups. So like, I would never consider going back to an ICE car. I couldn't believe anyone could ever do this. I'm like, guys, yeah, it happens.
So the choice is very, very thin still. You know, there's more choices now than in 2020, but I think I listed them all. I mean, there aren't a ton more
Model 3, Model
in
Y.
the family space. Yeah, I mean, you got Taycans, you got a couple other things, but
what kind of price range are you looking at again?
well, as little as possible. I mean, frankly, this is the third car. It needs to hold the family. It needs to have back doors. It needs to be a hatch, and it needs to be a winter beater.
And you're only gonna use it for like a year or two until.
Well,
you
it'll be
what
more.
you want.
The Buzz is going to be a while. I mean, it'll be 2 full years. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it's something you're just keeping for like a year or two, you could probably get something that's like appreciating that you can use as a winter car that like won't completely rust away. Something like a Land Cruiser or something. You could get like that potentially like for a short period of time. But if it's
This
gonna be
man
like potentially
commutes
more than a year,
50 miles a day.
Yeah. But okay, so yeah,
it also has to meet spousal approval. So
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like now knowing that, like, that obviously is out the window. But it's like if it was something where it's like, yeah, I got to use it for like a year. You know, for the next year, weekends potentially be working from home mostly. That would be like a more of a sensible decision. But yeah, now I'm going like, well, I'm waiting until the ID Buzz comes
I mean,
out.
2 years is a long time.
Yeah.
I mean,
What about the 500X? The Fiat 500X, that's a great car. With the nifty little A-pillar that used to hit much. Not X, the L.
Are you talking about the
L?
so the 500L is, I'm strongly considering
I would
looking
get.
at.
Scott sent me a link to one today.
Yeah, that'd be great. A manual 500L would be. Yeah, that'd be a perfect car. Jana, what do you think about 500L?
Yeah, I
Jana,
like
you're
those.
up there. Yeah, you like those.
So I'm going to post the link.
Do it. I'll put it up.
I sent Eric a link earlier today.
Uh,
So there's just one example, high trim, manual transmission, 2014, I think.
sounds
So the
right.
500L, they
Where did you post?
ended up killing the
I found it.
Okay.
ended up killing the manual transmission option on the L.
No.
I forget what year.
dumb.
Like,
But you can get an older one.
yeah, you get an older one, which is what I would do anyway, because we know that the reliability is good, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, so the reason I got rid of the Element is that it wasn't reliable enough and it got too poor of fuel economy. Now, arguably, I over-corrected for that, getting a BEV that like literally cannot brake and gets basically free fuel economy.
But is broken.
Yeah,
and
one of those two
inevitable.
things was woefully mistaken. So, you know, early adopting is it's still early adopting. It just is.
So this is the thing is like, so you're blaming early adopting, which is part of it, but I think another major part of this is that you're really overlooking the fact that if you look at Hyundai Kia's recall record, like, it has always been through the roof because they've always just like fixed things on the fly, and people are fine with it, and they're thrilled they're getting taken care of. But they can't do that with this because they weren't intending on you being not in Oregon or whatever where you bought it. And so like that's kind of like the issue that they're running into. So I don't think it's an early adopting thing. I think it's a Hyundai Kia thing that you ran into.
Well, they don't want to sell them here. You know, the Niro, if you look at like the Netherlands and some other countries, they sell a lot of these Niros. And in the US, they're just basically not trying to sell them. And you can tell that because they've got these cars in the lot, you know, a year past their model year. They had 19 model years into early 2021. They were still available in that point. So Kia is not motivated to move them. They don't really want to sell them. And as a result, they haven't sold that many in the U.S. You know, Canada, I bet, has bought comparable numbers. And so they don't really want to sell them. And I guess that means that a recall is less valuable because they just haven't moved as many of them. It's hard to say, but it should affect the worldwide supply. So I'm not sure.
I would be surprised if these motors don't turn into a TSB or recall anyway, but it's so early on that, yeah, I mean, there's going to... before every recall, there's a Scott, and there's a bunch of them that figure this out, and they get lemon buybacks, and then a recall happens. But, I mean...
Well, there's a few things. There's a few things. One is I drive the heck out of a car, and these people buying these Niros are generally penny pitchers or greenies or something. I'm not sure. They're not people buying performance cars.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of why these motors aren't failing are grabbing it. And the other thing is, most people who buy these, I speculate, have never driven another BEV. And I think that they're hearing the clicking sound and never thinking of it. I think that's a big part of this.
Yeah.
But eventually,
one of those major things.
When that part fails, then it's going to have to become a recall because these people will notice when the car stops moving.
And they have the 10-year powertrain warranty. I mean, that is definitely squarely within that 10-year warranty. So, I don't know. Maybe they superseded the motor again.
Everything you've been telling me about with this car just like makes me think about how wonderful I'm completely maxed out Mitsubishi Mirage should be. Just like as a vehicle, because like you want something that's cheap, something that gets 1 trillion miles per gallon, that's got a 10-year warranty, that's not gonna break.
It's not going to get GIB approval.
That's the thing. It's not going to get GIB approval. But I'm just like, in my world, like in my head, it'd be like, yeah, the number one thing would be the Mirage. And it's
honestly, a Mirage isn't a big car, but if you look at all the options, except for like the Model X and S, I guess to some extent, most of the options out there are not big vehicles. Now the Mirage is smaller, but I looked briefly at like Pacifica plugins, and that's like the only family somewhat battery powered car that's even been sold here that isn't $50,000 Model X.
Not a bad car. Not gonna lie. Well,
it's a
overpriced.
Minivan. They're too expensive. I think I was expecting them to be like $12,000 and they're like $20,000 for the bottom line.
Well, do you want to know the good news about the Mitsubishi Mirage? We now have the Thailand front end available in America, apparently.
Great.
I just went to Mitsubishi's website, and that's the picture that comes up when you look at Mitsubishi's website. Is that we have the Thai front end, the like really cool one where it's like the Outlander front end now. So that's pretty nifty.
I would look, but I don't trust the internet latency to
that's fair.
stress
That's
it.
Totally fair. You gotta take my word for this one. But it's like the Outlander / Eclipse Cross front end. It looks 10 out of 10.
Again, GIB's not going to approve that, but
no, and it's also weird because being a big time battery electric enthusiast and all that, I think to me there's cars in two camps nowadays. There's full battery electric and there is manual transmission gas cars.
Mm-hmm.
And to me there's no point in buying anything in between. And a plug-in is just overly complicated. It's kind of the worst of both worlds in a way.
Yeah.
And the only reason you go for that. Yeah, the only reason you go for the Pacifica is just because there's literally no alternative that's similar to it. And that's not a good enough reason. And so, if I do swing back the pendulum the other direction, then something like a 500L manual, I liked driving the Element. It was breaking down because it's old, but, 500L is like a 10-year newer car.
Keep in mind now, you have put in off-peak electric charging on your house, and you're paying a monthly fee to have that meter, whether you're using it or not. So...
Yeah. Well, I can just borrow your Fiat, but yeah, that's a real consideration. And a cheap Bolt is still an option. They're about 11K right now, and yeah, I'll just think about it. But it's really disappointing to basically just to have a battery electric enthusiast burned in a situation like this. So
Yeah, where you were so like, I guess gung ho about, like,
Yeah,
so into
right.
it.
Right.
And now they're going out of their way to be like, oh my god, we're gonna make you hate us so much that we're gonna put a bad taste in your mouth
Yeah.
for our brand forever.
Whatever
Right.
you do not buy a new car next. Because I remember after you sued and won with FCA, you're like, I'm never buying a new car again the rest of my life. And then bought the Niro, and lo and behold.
Every
Well, the problem
time.
is used prices of Niros are like 20, 27, 28.
Oh, it's way too
And
much.
I can get a brand new one for 35, and then you subtract the tax credit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 0% financing. It's such a weird. We're just at such a weird stage right now with the battery electrics that.
They should have just paid you.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, they really should have. They totally should have. Like, they just made this like as terrible as possible for you.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that's sort of the conclusion. I think the only follow up will be what I end up replacing it with, and that's pretty much it. That's
Right now, I'm in the process on Mitsubishi's website, fully maxing out Mirage for you to try and get Gibbs approval for it.
Can you get a manual on the top trims?
No, but you can make the base trim into a top trim.
Oh, okay.
It's really weird how you can do that, but like you can literally every single option you can put on optional.
But there's no reason to buy a Mirage new because you can just buy a 6-year-old one, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, like this way, nobody ever maxes them out. They get them to get the cheapest possible car.
Which is exactly what I would probably do.
I was gonna say of a gas manual replacement, an L is a good idea because yeah, it is. You looked at those even before we bought the second Element.
I mean, I didn't like them when they first came out, but I think in a good color and in a high trim, it just has that quirkiness that I really miss. If there's anything the Niro wasn't, it was quirky. It had basically no quirks to it, except they could do massive burnouts.
Oh,
That's about it.
did great burnouts.
That is
But
true.
I actually
You're
had a
not
couple
wrong.
corrections from the last episode. One, I said the 19th Amendment. It was actually the 18th Amendment. That was the one that repealed alcohol. And then the
Oh,
other correction was that I guaranteed that the Niro would be better acceleration in the winter with winter tires than the Element was. And that was
And it
dead
wasn't.
wrong. Dead wrong. The Niro
Wow.
is terrible. Terrible traction in the winter. Open differential and terrible brake vectoring. I mean, it is god-awful, even on Hakkapeliitta. So,
I found that
You get-
the electric torque is really, really hard to manage with two-wheel drive.
well, front-wheel drive. But
Well,
yeah.
that too. But even the 500e, if you cane it with the traction control off, it does not go anywhere.
No, but if you leave the traction control on, the 500D is way better.
Yes, it
Way
does have a much better
managed.
system. Mhm.
Yes.
Well, just I
So-
guess borrow my 500 until the winter comes, and then buy whatever at that point.
A fully maxed out Mirage, by the way, is $19,500.
God, that's so cheap.
Is there money on the hood too?
I know, right? But no, that's with it's a 5-speed wine red over black cloth interior with the exterior trim package, LED illumination, interior illumination, parking assist sensors, welcome package, rear bumper protector, armrest console, exhaust finisher, mud flaps, hood protector, LED
Oh my
fog light
gosh.
kit. I'm not done. Like Rockford Fosgate stereo, additional fog lights, because apparently you can add fog lights on top of fog lights, which is awesome. I just clicked all the buttons. So I did body side moldings and all-weather floor mats, 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. That's delivered to your door with a $1,000 destination handling fee, and then that's before I get to the $1,000 cash down, 0% APR
Oh my
for
goodness.
48 months plus $508 APR customer rebate. It's just they're giving these away. Why would somebody not buy one of these?
That's
Like, you have
incredible.
so much car for so little money is a fully loaded Mirage. Like I
Also,
don't
I
understand.
love that it's still a 5-speed, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It's the shift knob looks like it's from like 2003 as well. It's perfect.
How is the back seat in a Mirage? How much?
That's fine.
Rear-facing child seat.
It could
It's
fit 2 of those.
oh there you go. Yeah, Jan knows.
Yeah, I don't think it could fit 2 rear-facing car
Well,
seats.
only has to fit
like,
one, but
1, maybe. 'Cause
It's surprisingly
they're-
capacious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not getting a Mirage, but I like the idea of it. But
You really like the idea of it. Also, on the higher trim levels, there's a optional factory remote start.
Not with a manual, I bet.
No, it is not. But you can easily find one of the rollover high trim levels without a manual.
Yeah, I'm sure what Scott wants to do is go to a junkyard and start retrofitting parts on his new daily driver.
Actually, the new special trim level, the Carbonite edition, comes with a really cool body kit on it. So I'm kind of nerding out about this. I really wish that didn't have a CVT. I wish I could get a Carbonite with a manual. I would buy that. I would trade in my Fiat.
Poor Fiat. The answer is always Fiat.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, it's like, because like a Toyota would be good, but like it's not as fun. Like I can say it with honesty, like I love Toyota, but like they're just not as fun as Fiats. Like I can't say like a Yaris is as fun as a 500 with a straight face. Like it's not.
Well, and the original 500 is I guess it's a flawed car in a lot of ways, but I never grew old of that car. I never got tired of it. It was so quirky and weird, and too well honed. Like the 911, frankly, it was just so well engineered that it actually became kind of boring.
I was about to say, you know what's a flawless car is like a Volvo S80, and nobody cares about that car because there's not everything blends together into something that's good. Like you don't have something glaringly bad that you're dealing with on an otherwise great car, because I really think that the flaws help juxtapose what makes a car great.
Is it bad that the best character thing on the entire Tesla Model S is the fact that I cannot turn off the traction control and it continually drives me up the wall?
Yeah, that's bad.
That is the only piece of character that car has, and I do not like it.
Yeah, it's kind of bad. That's like an objectively bad car. Like it's one of those things where it's like it's good. It's such a good car, but
it's like a Porsche. World, there's no flaws. I'm bored.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like that's like when I say a car is like bad. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like, if it's too good, like it gets so good it's bad. Like you don't want to deal with it anymore because you're just like, okay, like I don't have anything to do here. Yes, this exists. I can now sleep and play video games while I'm driving, like, and it can out accelerate anything, but it's still meh. So
I still vote get a used Bolt with the money you saved and the tax credit and just call it good.
I say 500X, get turbo, enjoy it.
500L.
Turbos are fun. Oh, is the X not available with the turbo?
It is, but not with the manual.
Well, but the X is a crossover and the L is like an MPV.
The L is a Panda.
Yeah, I think it's related. Yeah.
The L is the one that's got the cool A-pillar.
The A-pillar, yeah.
Yes.
It's got a massive back seat. It's got a very tall
that's
third row
I'm sorry, yeah.
cargo.
The L's a good vehicle.
Very basic.
And the
seats are hard.
Yeah, that's true.
The seats are kind of weird. The what else? Reviews are never positive, but it's
fine.
Spacious.
It's very reliable too.
You know what car was the 1997 Motor Trend Car of the Year because it got nothing.
Malibu.
Yeah.
I remember reading that magazine.
In 1997, of all the cars in the world, that's the car that got the best reviews.
And I remember my buddy had just bought one of those, or his dad had, and I was like, "Hey, cool car, dude! It just won the car of the year." Boy, did I knew nothing.
You could buy an E39 528 manual.
You could buy an Integra Type R.
Oh.
You could buy an EK Civic. You could buy any other car in the world. You could get a DSM. Like, there's so many other cars.
Well, I think it was the 96. If I remember correctly, it was the 96, and the E39 came out in 97, and I think that won the award in 97.
Okay.
Even then, 96, you still had the Integra. You still had the Civic.
It had to be a new car, though. The only eligible cars are the new ones.
Yeah, nothing good came out in 96. I can't think of a single car that debuted in 96 that was good.
Actually, that is true, because I remember when I was, like, on a Japanese nostalgia car, we always try to do the 25-year, like, new inductions for, like, cars you can import. And, like, 1996, you're like, R33, I guess? Nope. that was 95. Huh.
Yeah, 95 and 97.
I think it was like the Mitsubishi FTO ended up being the only car we rode up that year. Like, there's just nothing. It was like that and like the Forester.
We've oddly talked about this, and I cannot remember. I think we did come up with something interesting, but
like,
it took a long time.
96 was a dud year for cars. Like, everything was good. Like, there's nothing new came out. I guess the EK came out, but like whatever. The Type R didn't come out till the year after
Didn't
that.
the Boxster come out in '96?
I mean, maybe.
No, it was 97 in the US. It was
Okay.
97.
I have no love for Boxsters, and then your ownership
Yeah.
of one reinforced that. Where I'm like,
As much as I hated my Boxster S, if a really cheap manual first year 2.5 came up for sale, I would still own one again.
God, why?
Because the 2.5s with the 5-speed are actually pretty good.
I'm thinking of all the other cars in the world that you can buy that do the same thing the Boxster does. That isn't the Boxster, and like it just puts the Boxster so far down my list of vehicles.
Don't worry, I have the 124 now. Everything's fine.
There you go, perfect. And that does everything a Boxster does,
But
and it's a
better.
Fiat. So there you go,
Yes.
Scott. Buy a Fiat.
Don't. Yeah, well, yes. Buy a 500L or a Bolt, but don't buy a 124 for your
Yeah,
child hauling.
the
ability.
power meter thing is an interesting point. I hadn't thought about
You're
it.
paying on it every month, whether you use it or not. It's like $35 a month just to keep it running.
No,
so.
it's not that much. It's not that much. I think it's like 10.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not terrible. Bolt. Get a Bolt.
There you go. All right.
Just put a paper bag wrap on it and call it good.
What's our timestamp right now?
Just crossed over an hour, so we're probably good.
All right, well, perfect. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so sorry that you had to deal with such a nightmare with the saga of your Niro, but I'm happy it's coming to an end for you, and you can move on to newer and not Kia things.
Hopefully, we will not need a part 3. I hope.
God, no, I hope
Oh my
not.
God, not gonna wood. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen.
Unless he buys another one and we go through the exact same thing.
No.
Hello, Miss
Please
Jocelyn.
Although I do appreciate the fact that you'll make everybody at Kia just collectively angry.
There is something about that really appeals to me personally.
Buy it on a
And
Friday.
getting the loyalty cash, and then just find that
buy it on a
endingly
Friday.
ironic.
Buy it on a Friday and ruin their whole weekend. And they all
Amazing.
read it and go, ah, shit. Actually, no, buy it on a Thursday just to make sure that the paperwork gets to them on a Friday.
Oh my God. Well, anyway, yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties, but thank you for joining us, and thanks for agreeing to come on and cover the second half. This has been at least very interesting from my perspective, so I'm glad to have it on the record.
Yeah, this has been such a nightmare to listen to. It reinforces all my views on Kia. And why every time Randy comes over with a Kia and he's all excited, I go, I don't give a shit. And he goes, why? And I'm like, because I fucking hate this company. And this is why I hate them.
no loaners on a brand new car that broke under factory warranty.
With
That's
less than
inexcusable.
1,000 miles.
Don't
It's just-
don't buy a
That's
low line
really
car,
insane.
except it's a Mitsubishi. Then buy it.
Well, no, I mean, but you can buy low-line cars. Just don't buy a low-line car where they're banking on their
Don't buy a first-year model.
their brand. Well, no,
Yeah.
I think it's just like don't buy a car where they're banking on their brand loyalty. Any company that talks about their loyalty, don't go for that because they're not going to care about you.
That's why Fiats are so good, because they never talk about it.
Yeah, they never ever do because nobody's loyal to Fiat.
I am. It's a great car.
All right. Well, cool. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you for listening. And this is usually when we talk about people that are on Twitch, but we're not on Twitch. This is cool.
Yeah, I don't trust this to even try streaming. So we'll see
Yeah.
everyone for 209. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.